Chapter 5. The room at the top of the house. "Let us go!" shouted Mary. Jake pushed her onto the sofa. "Sit there and be quiet," he said. Then he looked at Andy. "You two, on the sofa." Andy moved across the room and sat down next to Mary. Jake watched them both, an unfriendly look on his face. "What are you two doing here?" he asked. "Nothing," said Mary. "Well, nothing wrong. The kitchen window was open, so we came in for a look round. We didn't take anything." Jake looked at Oz. "The window's never open," said Oz. "We need to ask the boss what to do with them." "Yes," agreed Jake. "We're on our way to see him anyway, so let's leave these two here for a few hours to think about how stupid they've been." He looked at Mary and Andy. "Right," said Oz. "Upstairs." "Come on," said Jake. "Move." Andy and Mary stood up. Andy put a hand in his pocket and felt his phone. "We're going to be okay," he thought. "If they lock us up, I can just call Mum and tell her where we are." But his hopes ended quickly. "Have you two got phones?" asked Oz. "Give them here." Mary and Andy passed their phones to Oz. He threw them on the bed. "Upstairs," said Jake. Mary and Andy started walking up the stairs. Jake and Oz behind them. "Your English is funny," said Andy. Jake laughed. "It's your English that's funny," he said. "Where are you from? Britain?" "Yes," said Andy. "And where are you from?" "None of your business," said Oz. The house was very tall. Upstairs was 3 floors up. A small bedroom on the 4th floor at the front of the house. There was a small bed, a chair and table, and a lamp. Out of the window you could see the canal a long way below. "In here," said Jake. He walked over and tried the window. It didn't open. "Don't try to escape," he said. "You can't." He shut the door and they heard the key in the lock. Andy turned to Mary. He was about to say something, but didn't. She looked like she wanted to cry. She could be like that, fine until they really got into trouble, and then she just fell to pieces and started crying. That's when he had to help her. "I'm sorry," said Mary. "It was a mistake coming in here. My mistake. I'm sorry. We're in trouble, aren't we?" "What are we going to do, Andy?" Andy put his arm around Mary's shoulders. "Well, as usual, you've got us both into trouble, and I'll have to get us out," he said. She looked at him. His voice was kind. She thought he would be angry, but he wasn't. "The most important thing is to get out of this room before those men come back," Andy said. "First, let's have a look at the window." Andy walked over and looked at it very carefully. He tried it, but it really didn't open. He looked at the glass and then looked down at the street below. "We could break the glass and then shout for help," he said. "But this street isn't very busy, and I don't think that anyone will hear us." Mary was still sitting on the bed, looking unhappy. Andy walked across the room and started looking at the door. He looked all round it and then he looked at the lock. Mary watched him. "They've left the key in the lock on the other side, you know," said Andy. "Maybe we can push it out onto the floor and pull it through this side. I read something like that in a book once." He started to take off his t-shirt. "I'll try to get this under the door to catch the key when it falls out," he said to Mary. "See if you can find something to push the key out with." Mary started looking round the room. Andy got down and began pushing his t-shirt under the door. "What about this?" asked Mary. In her hand was a pen. "It was under the bed." Andy looked at the lock and tried to push the pen into it. "It's too big," he said. He started to give it back to Mary, but then he had another idea. Quickly, he took the pen to pieces. The inside of the pen was much smaller. "That's better," he said. On his knees by the door, he pushed the inside of the pen into the lock. Carefully and slowly, he pushed at the key. After a couple of minutes, there was a soft noise as the key fell out of the lock onto Andy's t-shirt. "All we have to do now is get it under the door," he said. Andy got down on his hands and knees so he could see under the door. Little by little, he pulled his t-shirt through from the other side. He had to keep the key on the t-shirt. Mary watched, her lip between her teeth. For one terrible moment, Andy thought the key was too big to get under the door. But then it came through. Quickly, he put it in the lock and opened the door. Mary put her arms round him and gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Thank you," she said. "You're wonderful." Yeah, said Andy and pushed her away. "Come on, let's get out of here." They ran down the stairs, Andy pulling on his t-shirt on the way. At the bottom of the stairs, Andy stopped. "Wait a minute," he said. He ran back to the first-floor bedroom and came back down with their phones. "They were still on the bed," he said. He gave Mary hers and put his in his pocket. "Shall we go out through the front door?" he asked. "Yes," said Mary. "And let's find that police inspector again."